Welcome back. This is the Kelly Roach Show. Today we're digging into lessons learned from failed hires, and boy, do I have a few of them. But before we get into those, let me just remind you, no matter how many hires you make in your lifetime, you are dealing with humans. So you're going to strive to improve your process and to improve your effectiveness. Each hire that you make, you're going to strive to continue to build the kind of organization that can attract and retain A players. But just keep in mind that there is no perfection when it comes to hiring, because you are in fact dealing with humans. So hopefully that is just a reminder as we begin. Now, even in the Fortune 500 world, I was responsible for recruiting, hiring, and training my own team members. And so it's pretty suffice to say that I have hired hundreds of team members at this point, and also promoted dozens upon dozens of new hires. I've also helped individuals to climb the ranks into mid-level and high-level executive leadership roles, both in corporate and in my own companies. And I've had wins and I've had losses with each one of these things. I've had hires that I'm unbelievably proud of, and people that have been with me for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, almost 10 years now. And I have people that have come and gone in a matter of days in my company. I've had people that have come and gone that I still have relationships with, and I have people that have been exited from my organizations. It was not a positive, and there will not be a continued relationship. So all that to say, there's good and bad, highs and lows, every step of the way upon your journey of building a winning team. I've said this before and I'll say it again. All the best and greatest things that you will ever accomplish in business and in life will be because of other people, people that you hire, people that you partner with, people that you get into a relationship with. That's true for the best things, and that's true for the worst things. And you can't play small enough to not be affected by the byproduct and outcome of working with people. And I see so many business owners that avoid going all in on building their dream team, and they give up on their dream of having freedom in their business because they've had a couple bad experiences with hiring and they've dealt with all the same things that I've dealt with. I'm just here to cheer you on and to remind you that it is a process and that it's a dream that's worth holding on to. Because in order to have freedom and in order to have peace and in order to really experience the true joy of entrepreneurship, you will need a winning team. You can't do this alone. And so no matter where you are in that business building journey, no matter where you are in your team building journey, I'm just here to remind you that it's a dream that is worth holding on to, and to not give up no matter how hard it seems or no matter how many times you have to try. Even though there's never going to be a perfect hiring process that helps you to completely avoid mishires, there are a lot of things that you can do that are going to keep you out of trouble. And the first and most important thing is to make sure that you have a standardized process that you follow to vet people. We tend to do most of our recruiting from LinkedIn. We will then use a video application process. 98% of people, maybe even 99%, it's a very high percentage of people, will not complete the video. And so that right there is going to knock your candidate pool down to a very small fraction of individuals that have enough work ethic and enough desire to even take that step. And then from there, we have an initial first round interview. We typically have a second round with a secondary team member, and then we have a final interview. From there, you want to go ahead and check references and have the offer conversation, and then we'll go into the relationship if it makes sense to do so. Standardizing your process is very, very important, because when you skip over steps in the process, you'll always find that the thing that you missed was in the step that you skipped. And I can look back on this with failed hires over and over again. And I can see that each and every time we skip a step, the thing that we missed was in that hidden gem, right? So while you're listening to this, what I would do, first step, is write down, what is your hiring process going to be? What are the steps of the process? What are the safeguards that you're going to put in place? Who's going to be involved? And how's that process going to flow? So write that down now. That is going to help you narrow this process down significantly. That's number one. And then number two, I found that when I don't follow a set of interview questions that I have predetermined, it's very easy to get into a great conversation where you're talking about things that the person is in their strength on. And you're having a great conversation and it's progressing along. You feel really good about the interview, but you miss things because you didn't stick to the questions. You didn't ask the tough questions that you had planned because the interview was going well and the relationship was building. And so you didn't actually ask the tough questions that would have revealed the true meat that you needed to get to determine whether or not this is your person. So another big mistake that I've made is actually skipping over using pre-prepared interview questions to ensure that I really asked the pointed things that were going to do the big reveal that would allow me to know whether or not this is the right person. And let me tell you how many mishires I have made because of that. You don't even want to know. Okay. So that's the second big thing. The third big thing is, one of the struggles that you'll get into as your company begins to grow is that you recognize that you need better leadership and you need more leadership. And so you get into this place where you have great people, but you can't get the best out of them because you don't have enough leadership and you don't have the right management. So then you start searching for management. You want to hire leaders and you get really tempted. It's easy to be seduced into hiring these like high level, very skilled people into these executive roles or high level leadership roles. And this was another huge mistake that I made because even if someone has talent or capability, coming in at that high level, number one, culturally, there's going to be backlash. But number two, many times they don't know how to apply their history or their skill set or their experience to your organization. And so they end up actually slowing down the department and the people that they're managing. And because they're coming into such a high level role, they're not coming in to actually do a job in the company, right? They're coming in to lead. And even though they have lots of responsibilities, those responsibilities don't make a direct contribution. And so it creates a lot of internal turmoil. But beyond that, I find that a lot of times people that come into leadership roles instead of coming into an execution role, they're never able to actually master the executive role. And I think it's one of those things that goes hand in hand with almost everything in business, which is that you can't learn business in theory. You can't do business in theory. You can't grow business in theory. And you can't lead in theory. And so I stopped completely hiring people into direct executive roles or into direct management roles. Everyone that I hire now comes into an actual execution-based role. And then if they are able to perform in that role, they will then be promoted into a higher level executive role. And that has worked really, really well for me. And I've been really happy with the people that I've done that with for the most part. And so that's a huge, important thing to keep in mind as you want to begin to build leadership and management in your company. And you will, and you'll have to, because you'll get to the point where you have great people, but you can't do everything and be everything. And you realize that the people aren't getting what they need. And you're having to have your hands in everything and it's impossible. So it will become a necessary evil to hire management, but I would really, really recommend that you hire them into an execution role first, see whether or not they can get it, and then quickly promote and up level from there. Okay, next, skipping references. Now here's what's so interesting, right? Because skipping references, that was something that when I worked for a Fortune 500, that was not allowed, it was required. So you had to actually submit the references. It was impossible to skip over because you had to submit them in order to move to the next step of the process. I found that in your urgency, in your desire, in whatever, in the entrepreneurial world, that it's very often that you end up skipping over these. And, a lot of people say, oh, well, in today's environment, a lot of people won't give an honest recommendation or give an honest reference. And that's true. But if you hear or see someone holding back and they're not jumping all over themselves to say, yes, I would hire this person back. Yes, I would bring them in again, which is always my number one question is would you hire this person back? What role would you bring them in for? Would you bring them back in for this role? Even without them saying anything negative about the person, you will know in less than 2 minutes whether or not they truly recommend this person and whether or not this person is actually, someone that they would rehire, right? Which is crucial. Even if someone's not a fit, you definitely want to make sure of that. So that's huge. Okay. So definitely check references, minimum of 2 references on anyone that you're considering hiring into your organization. And think about the catastrophic damage that bringing the wrong person in does. I mean, we do not want people in and out of our companies. It does so much damage to the team, the productivity, and the morale. And it wastes so much time, so much energy, so much financial investment every time we make a mishire. These are little things that you can do before you make the hire to minimize the chances of making the wrong one. So we've talked about a couple different things here, but I'm going to give you more. I want to give you even more because I really want to help you dial this in. The next one is important. And this is one that I have noticed, and I've noticed this a lot more in the last few years. I think this is a sign of kind of culture and where we're at and all of those things. Do not hire someone who has an emotional reason for leaving their last employer. And I have had this back to back with 2 different people where it ended up that they actually had emotional issues. So when someone leaves an employer because they didn't feel like they didn't get their needs met, they didn't feel like, and it's something where for whatever reason, even if they say it in a very nice way, I will say both of these people that I hired, they said it in a very nice way. They said it in a professional way, but ultimately their emotional needs were not being met. That wasn't what they said, but they said it in a different way. And come to find out, getting them in our organization, they were completely unmanageable, completely uncoachable, flew off the handle when given feedback, were not able to handle constructive criticism, and, both ended up having to be terminated. Okay. So please be weary of the reason why people leave an employer. Just like, when you get a coaching client and that coaching client bashes all the other coaches that they've worked with and they were idiots and there was something wrong with their program and they didn't get anything out of it and this, that, and the other thing. And then that person comes in and they're a complete nightmare, right? That person's a complete nightmare. Okay. So keep that in mind. Right? Don't think that you're going to be the one person that this person doesn't have an issue with, because the commonality in all of those issues is that person. And your failure to recognize that just puts you in the middle of their tornado that they continue to perpetuate over and over again in every situation that they go into. So that was a huge one for me. Urgency hires. We've all made urgency hires. I've made urgency hires more times than I'm proud of. I don't do this anymore, but there were definitely times where my companies were growing so fast that we just let our guard down. We let our guard down. We hired people that we never should have. We did not vet them appropriately. We were loose in our expectations. We kind of pushed people through that were halfway there with what we needed because we needed someone, and it just never works out. It never works out. I know the pain when you need someone to get in that role is very tempting because you want to relieve the pain, but the pain is going to be 1,000 times more when the boomerang effect happens, when you have to remove that person, clean up the mess, course correct, go find another person. You're so much better off, getting some temporary help while you search, or redistributing, tasks or whatever the case. So please avoid those urgency hires. And then number 5 is not using enough behavioral event interview questions. So studies of human beings tell us that the best way to predict a person's future behavior is to look at their past behavior. And so what you want to think about is, how can you ask questions about what someone has done in various situations in their past to predict how they're going to handle situations in the future? And this could be around overcoming challenges. This could be around delivering on promises. This could be around being the underdog and how they overcame struggles to get to a result. This could be dealing with struggling with a teammate or a manager. This could be any number of things. I tend to like to ask people about long-term goals that they had to work towards for multiple years in order to achieve success. And, that tends to give me a lot of answers about that. But you can Google behavioral event interview questions and get a whole plethora of ideas. And just taking the time to slow down, structure your process, stick to it. not constantly change it, not skip over steps. I will tell you, I look back at these situations and so many of them were preventable. And so many of them were completely my fault. They were completely my fault because I skipped over steps. I didn't do the right due diligence. I overlooked little nuances that were very impactful in whether or not the person was going to succeed. And because of that, I set myself up and I set my team up for pain and for struggle because, these people were not the right fit. And, the final thing that I'll say is in order to bring a great hire into your company and have them thrive, you have to be the company that can create the level of environment and structure and support and success that someone is going to need to thrive and perform for you. And I think just knowing that ultimately it's you. And ultimately, it's me. And it's where we have misses and it's where the company has misses, whether it's in the recruitment process, the interview process, the onboarding process, the management process, it always comes back to us. And that's where we have to constantly be evaluating our process, our systems, and even our mindset, our accountability around improving our environment and improving our culture and improving our companies to create it into a place that can attract and retain these peak performers that we want to have on our teams. And I guess the final thing that I'll say is people that have never sold or dislike selling, especially in today's environment. It doesn't matter if you're customer service, if you're client services, if you're operations, if you're sales, your marketing, we are all selling. We're all selling all day, every day. And whether you're a leader that has to sell your team on the dream, or whether you are someone that is directly interfacing with customers, just about every role is going to have some type of sales element to it. And I find that people that either say they don't like sales or don't want to do sales, many times what they're really saying in code is they don't like accountability and they don't like being held to a structured outcome. And so what I would say is just be really, really weary of that, because you need people that are extremely flexible, extremely pliable, willing to kind of jump in on different things, where you need them, how you need them. And if they don't have that mindset, it's going to be a struggle for your relationship with them. But more importantly, it's going to be a huge struggle for the company. The other thing that I would say is I would really make sure that, you are interviewing them either in person or on video, because there is so much that you can absorb in an instant about someone's energy, about how they conduct themselves, about how they show up, about all of those things that is going to help you to know very, very quickly whether or not this person is going to be a fit for your organization. And so there are many little nuances in the way that they communicate that you can pick up on. You can see whether or not they're on brand. There's just so much that will allow you to better understand the match by doing that process. Okay. So I hope I gave you a lot to think about today, from the level that you're hiring into to the step-by-step process that you're following, using references, digging into reasons why people left their employers, being really careful with urgency hires, and making sure that you're using behavioral event interview questions, as well as all the tools that are at your disposal to set you up for success in this process, to minimize mishires and to maximize the chances of getting the right person in the door so that you and them can build a thriving long-term relationship and partnership together. Thank you so much for tuning into the Kelly Roach Show. I hope you got immense value out of today's episode. The greatest thing you could possibly do if you love today's show is share it on social. Tag me, Kelly Roach Official on Instagram or Kelly Roach on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. I'll look for you back here next week.